the longest championship in RCI history. It's a long one, folks. Welcome back to the GT Sprint Challenge. The races might be a sprint, the season will be a marathon. More than a month's worth of racing coming at you live, and it all starts tonight here at Silverstone in the UK. Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Tim Peck and Ryan Mawson behind the cameras for race number one. Tim Peck, it is good to be back for a second season with you.
It is very good to be back here, and thank you for having me back for a second season as well. I'm very excited about this one because, as you just mentioned, it is much longer than anything we've done before, and what I want to know is how the points are going to change throughout. You've got a lot of big names sitting there on the leaderboard already, showing you some of the people that are in this championship. A lot of them from the previous championship we just had, they've come back to try and get a good start and hopefully settle for some great points in Silverstone here. But you've also got some new names that maybe haven't been in an RCI championship for a while as well that are starting to show through. So I'm just really excited to see how today turns out, Jesse.
Well, up at the front, it is a case of the usual suspects here in practice. No George Boothby in this championship, and we talk about that occasionally where he'll show up and he'll run a couple of seasons and then he will sort of retire as if to give some other drivers and teams a chance. That is kind of what's going on here, but that's not to say that we don't have big name. Hugo Merrill, Samir Foch, Borgosman, Jardier, of course, needs no introduction. Juna Savalainen's here. Soldatov, you get the point. Climbs Barrier, who we will not be showing you on stream today because apparently Ryan Mawson is banned from showing that particular car on stream. Allegedly, every time our broadcaster showed Valentin Barrier on cam, that car had an issue. So for reasons like that, we were told we're not going to do that. So we'll have to call the action without the live cam. I don't know if that's a joke or not, by the way. That might not be a joke. That might have actually been an official request. Tim Peck, it's a long season, but everybody has to start somewhere. Getting a good start to a season, incredibly important. That all starts here tonight. How do teams or drivers avoid the big mistakes tonight in a big crowd of cars around a really fast race circuit?
Well, I think the first thing you've got to say is qualifying has to be done well here tonight. Obviously, there's overtaking opportunities all around this track, and there are places where you can get a good overtake on, but regardless, I think starting as high up as possible is important. If you're in that pole position, you're going to have such a good start to the race because above anything else, you won't be in the mid-pack. You'll be able to avoid some of those accidents that could well happen towards that first corner. It's a very fast first corner too. So it's good to be high up because it's less cars that you have to worry about trying to avoid. So I think the first thing you've got to do here, Jesse, is qualify high, get a great result in qualifying, and then hopefully you can transition that into a good result in the race as well. If you stay out of trouble, if you have a really good drive, you can bring home some good points. And that's what I want to see from the top drivers today. I want to see them coming home with a good first result, getting some great points in at the beginning of this championship.
Well, there are a couple of very special rules for a longer championship that we haven't seen here in 2 years. I was talking to race admin Bart Macha earlier on, and he said that he was using certain rules and had to devise some rules that had never been used before simply because it has been at minimum 2 years since RCI had a championship even nearly this long. We've had a couple of champs where they were 7 rounds of races. Most of the time it's 6 rounds and sometimes even as little as 5. This is 8 rounds of racing. This will take us well into the colder months of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, but it all starts here today, one day shy of October. Well, some things have changed, some things have not changed. 10 minutes of qualifying for a 1-hour race. Everybody in the pro split in this series, everybody looking to take the first pole of the season, and of course, that's worth extra points as well.
Currently, we are watching Savalainen go around the track. This is going to be, I believe, their warm-up lap. I'm not 100% sure they've done a lap yet, so this will be the warm-up lap for Savalainen. Out of the pits first, though, has a nice clear track ahead of them to get a very good lap time in. But I've got to say, Jesse, there are some people here who I'm seeing from the last season that I'm almost expect, without giving them a commentator's curse, which we're known for here, I'm almost expecting them to do really, really well in this championship. And it's got to be said that Silverstone is one of them. They were always lingering around that podium, had a couple of great shots as well for some really good points, and finished quite high up in the standings as well. So Junior Silverstone, someone who I think should be looked out for in this championship.
Savalainen, one of the drivers that if you looked up their stats, you would have think they had more wins than they actually do. Savalainen, just for whatever reason, has this innate ability to find drama in the middle of races, has led races, has won races, of course, and I believe has won a couple of championships throughout the weekly series as well. But the total's not nearly as high as I would have thought it would have been, but just so many things have gone wrong for this driver. He's in the red car this season, and that's a distinction that I will have to commit to memory, of course, changing the color of the Mercedes-AMG GT3 machine several times over his tenure here at RCI, but red this season, and will give us the pleasure of having the very first time lap, the benchmark, if you will.
Coming now onto the start finish straight, I believe. Now going to be coming towards the first corner. Yeah, it's one of those tracks, Jesse, where there's a lot of variation in the corners. You've got a couple of those long, fast, sweeping ones. You've got a lot of the slower paced ones as well. That was not the start finish straight, by the way. That was the start finish straight for Formula One layouts of the circuit. But either way, going back to what I was saying, Jesse, is you've got a lot of those fast sweeping corners, a lot of slower corners as well, and a couple of hairpins in there too. So a very varied track at Silverstone. I think it's actually one of the best tracks to start a championship out on, because it really tests the driver's abilities on a lot of different types of corners. It's not just limited to something like Monza, where it's a lot of fast-paced corners. So I think Silverstone's a great track to start out on. I think it's going to be a real test for the drivers out there today, just to showcase what they can do on the track.
Well, we're going to see coming to the line, Savalainen should be giving us our first lap here, and it is a 56.442 for Juna out in front, a little less than 2/10 behind him. Hugo Merrill's in the 404 Grand is well off of that pace. 6+ tenths, Faiskas with more than one. Actually, no, that's not more than 1 second. Excuse me, that's 6/10 off. No, excuse me, that was Faiskas with 1 second off. And the triple nine of, excuse me, I can't pronounce that name right now. The 999 off of that pace. Savalainen still the fastest of them all. Jardier goes P3. Borgosman slips into 4th. That will force a car down to the 5th place position. Such a large track. Not a lot of time to get it right here. You're going to have to run a couple of really quick laps, and a mistake here is going to cost you pretty much half of your qualifying time. Anybody out there, usually we see this strategy where you'll come in, you'll run 1 lap, maybe 2, and you'll come into the pit lane. I don't think that'll be favored here today, considering the length of the lap.
Yeah, and with qualifying being only 10 minutes long, by the time you've done that out lap, you're already losing a lot of time as well. And like you said, if you mess up your lap, you've probably lost pretty much 50% of the qualifying time. So it's really important that you get some great laps in very early on as well, which Silverstone, I've got to hand it to them. They've done a great lap there, 156.442. It's one of those times where it's definitely not the fastest they can go around the track, but in terms of a start of quali, it's very, very solid, and that will even hold as we go into the end of quali as well. That time we'll be able to hold up and keep them in one of those top 10 positions as well. So Silverstone there having a great first quali lap, and Hugo Morales as well, just a 10th behind, also going to be very happy with how the first lap went today.
Yeah, that was an absolute corker of a lap. I thought a couple of times they might have got really close to track limits. That's something that we'll all be paying attention to here. Running wide can get you a very cheeky track limit here as Grant goes back to P4. That's knocked Borgosman down to 5th for the time being. 57.015, their current quickest, but they'll best that with that lap of 56.692. A very nice lap time takes them all the way up to 2nd, 5/100ths off of Savalainen out in front. Savalainen has had a lot of success here at RCI, and one of the tracks that he's done a great deal of that damage at has been right here. In fact, I recall one race over a year or so ago came from outside the top 5 to either win the race or finish very close to winning the race, 2nd place or so. And just 1 hour. It shows you how strong he is here, and that's what it's going to take to get it done today.
Climbs on your screen right now. They're just coming through the final few corners, and they are currently a little bit up on their delta, though not quite enough to put them into a better position just yet, but they may be able to get something here through the final corner that will hopefully be enough to put them up in 7th. I'm not quite sure it is going to be enough though, but Climbs currently sitting in a nice 8th place. We'll hope to hold on to that, because it's in that top 10 really you want to start out, Jesse. There's about, I believe there's 40 cars on the track right now. There's 34 cars out on the track right now. So when you're starting, you want to be towards the front in that top 10, because it just helps you to stay out of that extra bit of trouble. Because if there is going to be an incident, which hopefully there won't be, but if there is, then it's that mid-pack that will really suffer the most from this. So any top 10 start today, I'd say, is a great place for one of these drivers.
Ryan Mawson already breaking his vow to not show Valentin Berrier, and in fact, we ride on board Rocket Sim Sport Bentley, and I understand why he's broken that vow. It's a Bentley, a car very close to his heart. It's home here in the UK as well. In 12th place, I expect that to improve for Berrier, but the unfortunate part about that is there is a car directly in front of him as they come through the loop and then entry. I wonder if maybe Berrier will abandon this lap or do something to try and get out from behind that car in front. You never know. Maybe they slow up. It ruins a lap time. But no, absolutely not backing off of this lap as we come through Brooklands and through Love Field. And this is what I was worried about, getting very close. All the different lines in Love Field that you can have. And that's maybe held up Berrier, or at very least caused him to change his line ever so slightly. That could have changed the outcome of the lap time, but it's an improvement. You bet it is. 8th place, a 56.977, and that's going to be it. Valentin Berrier is done with qualifying here.
It's a real shame that you get caught up in traffic like that, but it's something we've not talked about yet today, Jesse, is finding the space in qualifying. Of course, if you're out first, if you're coming out of the garage as the first driver, you've got that nice open bit of space in front of you, but then for everyone else, it's about finding enough just to keep it that you're out of someone's way in qualifying. Because like we saw there, Valentin Berrier is still going to give it their all around the final couple of corners, but if the car ahead of you makes a slight mistake, even just takes a slightly different line to you, that can really hold up your time. Now, of course, it doesn't always happen. For Berrier there, I can see why they continue to push and not opt for the extra lap, because you don't know, the driver in front of you may be doing their fastest time as well, and they may be able to really push for a good lap too. So Berrier continuing there is the best thing, but it is a shame that they maybe got held up slightly there. Jardier, though, it's a different story for Honzik there, who's just put themselves into that 3rd place position on the podium. They're going to be happy with how that lap's just gone.
Yeah, and still out there again, maybe able to get another one. They didn't stop, which tells me they have enough fuel to run another lap, and there's a little Ferrari party inside the top 5. Jardier, Foch, and Hugo Merrill's all there. Of course, George Boothby last year was championing the Ferrari car, but did have Jardier and Foch. And of course, Boothby credits Samir Foch with learning how to drive that car. Speaking of all these drivers coming to the line, no improvement on the pylon for any of these guys, and Hugo Merrill's is already done and dusted. They're all within a 10th or so. That's not a big deal, especially at a racetrack that has so many straights on it. Hamilton Straight, for instance, the Hangar Straight, Wellington Straight, just to name a few of them. It's a track where you can pull up to pass people even without DRS as such. Chavalainen is not giving in. They're continuing to pound around, knowing that 5/100ths is just a little bit too close. Coming to the line, will it be another improvement? No, it will not. A couple of tenths off of their best lap, but it little makes no difference. They're still in provisional pole.
A couple of cars left finish their fastest lap. Right now we're watching with the number 39 Ferrari, because they're in the best position here to maybe take pole position away from Salva line. They're currently a 10th up on their lap, which will just be enough to take that pole position. They're coming around the final corner here. They need to keep this as tight as possible, just so that they can pick up as much of the delta as they can. And then coming out into the final straight, has this been enough for them to maybe get that pole position spot? I'm currently watching the delta, and I think they're just going to be shy a couple of hundredths, and they're just 2 hundredths off that pole position, but Honzik promotes himself up into 2nd place.
Well, this is going to be interesting. It's a familiar front row to us up here in the booth. Savalainen and Jardier, they went wheel to wheel on a couple of different occasions throughout the Friday Championships history. And I don't think we've seen the last of them this season. Season 8 already shaping up to be a good one. A who's who here. And by the way, there's 30 plus cars. Folks, these are all pro cars. There's more than this one split going on tonight for this championship. And of course, mid-season signups for all of our ongoing championships are open all the time throughout the week. All you got to do is finish your pre-qualifying and get involved for next week's race. RaceRCI.com, RACEIRCI.com, RaceRCI.com, and sign up there, join the Discord, and get involved. We have a split for you no matter what your skill level. And well, this is normally the part of the show where we show you the championship standings, but there isn't any, so we won't, so there isn't. Moving right along, Tim Peck, what do you expect to see this evening here at Silverstone?
I think it's going to be an all-out race. Obviously, a lot of people will be wanting to come home with the best points possible, and I stand by saying that I think that's the best option for a lot of these drivers here, to go as all-out as they can today. Because although it's a long championship, there's 8 races in it. That's 8 races where things could go wrong. So a solid start today, some good safety points behind these drivers' belt is what I'm expecting to see. And I think a lot of those guys at the front, you've got Salverlainen, Honzik, Bergosman, Foch, and Morels, they're all going to be trying to get a win today. And I wouldn't discount any of them either. I mean, we saw last season how competitive Hugo Morels was, and I don't expect any of that has gone away for a second. So if you ask me who's someone to keep your eye on today, if you ask me who's the driver to be looking at, I'd say Hugo Morels is definitely the one that you should be watching.
That's very interesting. I'm going to take the entire front of the grid since you left it open for me. We saw the 100 of Savalainen. Let's take a look at the Jardier, the Yas Heat 39 Ferrari. These are going to be your front two runners, and you can get a shot around the outside here into turn one. It's not the most safest maneuver, but we have seen it work out in grand fashion before. Savalainen's going to have to get a really nice start and hope that he doesn't get trapped to the inside of the corner and lose all of their momentum into 1 and 2. And I'm expecting a land rush style start here. You could see as many as 4 wide, not even just at turn 1. Turn 3, the tight right hander, you could see them 3 and 4 wide there again. That's usually the trouble corner on the opening lap. Of course, that's before we get to the Wellington straight, and all of that also becomes a little bit of a headache for me. The keys to the win today: survive the first lap. I know that sounds like a no-duh moment. It's harder than you think with 30-plus pro cars.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing is if there's a slight incident in front of you, maybe not even a full crash, but let's say 2 cars come into contact with each other and they slow down, then that's going to put a big threat on all of the cars behind that they're going to have to try and navigate their way through without causing a collision. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think surviving turn 1 is going to be the key for today. And that being said, I'm also going to go back to what you're saying about Salverlainen and Honzik at the front there. And I mean, for those of you that know Jardier, they're not someone to shy away from a fight. In fact, it was only last season in Indianapolis, I believe, where we saw them go around the outside of someone on that first corner there. So I think if there's anyone that Salverlainen should be worried about right now, it is absolutely Honzik in that second place position, because if there's one driver I know will go for the move around the outside, it's going to be Honzik.
And, you know, I hate to get my soapbox out so very early on into the season, but first of all, I'm so short I need it to begin with. But number two, this circuit, the way that we run it here for GT Racing, this is the correct way round. I will not hear any argument for the F1 pit straight being the correct straight. You're wrong. Cops is always turn number 1, and then Maggots and Beckett's Chapel, etc. This is the right way around, and especially for GT cars in particular, this makes the very start of the race very interesting indeed. You'll see them going very much 2 or 3 abreast into Cops, right? But you've got to sort it out before you get to Maggots and Beckett's. It can go wrong there. What will the top drivers be thinking? Who will be the ultimate opportunist in the field? Talked about Jardier just a little bit. That reminded me, what does Jardier always do better? He races better. No matter how good he qualifies, the man races better. considering he already qualified in P2, I think it's set up to be a good day.
I agree. And Jardier, one of the drivers in the last championship as well, Jesse, who just absolutely shone above some of the others, really took their races to the next level, had some brilliant overtakes, some brilliant strategy calls as well. And Jardier, I think, is one of those drivers that comes into this season looking very, very hot and a big threat to everyone else out on the track right now. And that's the thing here, is you've got to be thinking what these drivers know about each other already. A lot of these drivers drive each other in a lot of races around and about. A lot of these drivers know each other. They've been training with each other as well, maybe going on some friendly drives too. So you've got to remember that they know everything about each other here, and we'll probably be looking at specific drivers that they are maybe thinking, okay, they're probably going to perform quite well this season. They've been doing really good in previous championships here at RCI. I need to watch out for them today, and I'd say that Jardier is definitely one of those drivers.
Yeah, of course, Jardier had had a couple of interesting seasons here. There was going back in time, there was the Boothby v. Jardier, where they knocked 7 bells out of each other for several weeks in a row, and they didn't care so much. They were having fun doing it, and they were all alone at the front of the field, and it was very exciting stuff. And Boothby, of course, season 7 ran away with it ever so slightly. No George Boothby in this championship, or at least he's not here tonight. There are a couple of rules differences for this long season as opposed to the shorter season. The race distance is the same. The pit requirement is the same. 60-minute races every Friday evening, well and truly through the entire fall season. The pit requirements are the same. 25 seconds stationary in pit lane, 1 liter of fuel required to be taken on board. What else you do is rather up to you when you're sitting still in the box. 5 extra seconds, a 30-second stop, nets you a fresh set of boots. As there ever is the presence of weather in RCI races. We don't expect that to come into play here today. And if we are on the British Touring Board for vacations, it's like this all the time here. Very sunny, very lovely weather in Britain. Never rains here at all. The things that are different, very quickly, is the sign-outs. You're allowed, I think, 3 sign-outs throughout the entire championship, Tim, instead of just the 1 or 2, which they're usually allowed.
Okay, my other question to you is drop round. Do we still only have the 1 drop round, or has it been upped to 2 for the championship?
Question I had as well. It is still the 1 drop round. 1 drop round, but you're able to sign out for 3 races and not be dropped out of the championship.
That's interesting as well then, because obviously the drop round is one of those rounds that comes into play quite a lot. Usually people use it on their sign out round as well, so they sign out and use the drop round for that. But the drop round is just your worst result is taken, and then everyone's worst result is negated for 1 race. But a lot of people could use that for different things. Of course, if you had a big crash in race 1, then that's your drop round used up probably. And I think only having the 1 drop round could keep things very, very interesting in this championship as well. But that's all for us to come and to watch in the future there, Jesse, because right now we've got Salverlinen leading the outlap for these drivers. You've got Jardier just lining themselves up behind, but Ghostman in 3rd, Foch in 4th, and the Hugo Morales in 5th. You can see them all just coming up the track now, going to all be looking for something on that first corner. And it goes back to what you're saying, Jesse. You've got to survive that first corner, because all of these drivers could do something big. And I've seen, in my time here commentating RCI, I've seen some huge moves coming into this turn 1 at Silverstone. It's definitely a great sight to see.
Well, now's as good a time as any to welcome in our live stewards with us, as always, here on the Friday GT Sprint Challenge. Hopefully they don't have a mess. If there's too many cars involved, there might even be the threat of a restart. I don't think it'll be that mission critical today, but all the drivers, some 30+ pro teams coming through Woodcote for the final time at pace speed. They will wait till they get under the starter's gantry to start the race. The very first race in Season 8 of the GT Sprint Challenge. Waiting across the line now, still waiting for the lights waiting for the flagman and still waiting. And there we are. We are off for season 8 for the GT Sprint Challenge, and it's a very nice start for Savalainen. Jardier able to sneak in as Borgosman had a look down the inside, but got covered off by Jardier. The top 4 or 5 are all single file, but for 5th now, it's 2 by 2 as they enter Maggots and Beckett's. They've got to get that sorted.
Salvaline having a great start there, managed to help them just defend that extra bit against Jardier, and you can see now Soldatov just trying to hold on to that 7th place position because Valentin Barrier got a very, very good start and had a great exit for Maggots and Beckett's as well. They're going to be trying to find themselves alongside as we come down towards this big, large right-hander here. You can throw yourself around it, but as you can see, Soldatov managed just to stay ahead of Barrier.
That was an excellent move. I just got to say about Jardier, what he did there was that was his plan all along. He had no inclination that he was going to hook it around the outside and try to get a run into Maggots and outrun Savalainen. And he knew that he needed just enough gap to get in between him and Borgosman because he figured he was going to be stuck around the outside. He absolutely would have. He had been passed by Borgosman, Foch, Hugo Merrill's even perhaps there, and he got in line to preserve that 2nd place for the time being. Gleba here in the 5 has had a little bit of an off-track excursion, and they're going to completely run wide there. That's going to be a 3-wide situation as they end up going through the loop. That's never good, but they somehow all about get it sorted out with only just minor fender banging there. That was excellent job considering how scary that actually looked.
Ghazi in the BMWs closing in on Climbs just ahead. You can see them now trying to throw themselves around the outside of the corner here. That will give them the benefit. They can stay alongside and they'll have the inside for this final turn, but they don't quite have it. And Magazi will fall back for now, but if they can get a good exit here coming out onto the start-finish straight, they should be able to do what Jardier was going to look to do on the first corner and hopefully slingshot themselves around the outside, but already you can see the BMW's falling that bit too much behind the Porsche there, which will help the Porsche to stay ahead. Climbs will be ahead going into turn 1.
One car has fallen a bit off the pack, and I wonder if maybe that was a little bit of an incident, but my eyes may be deceiving me in my old age, but I'm pretty sure that was a mostly clean start to the race. Certainly there will have been some things that we didn't see, but as far as best case scenario goes, I think we've had it. Just as I say that, a car stranded between Kops and Maggots, and it's Mate in the 256, and that car has returned to the pit lane. Some other local yellows coming through Beckett's that time, one of them being Coderman in the 889. That car has fallen outside the top 25. They were in the top 25, and massive damage on the Fun Sim Racing car.
You just had to go and jinx them, Jesse. As soon as you said there was no chaos, it happened.
Immediately, too.
Oh, and there wasn't even a slight bit of hesitation, but either way, good start for the front runners here. Hopefully I don't jinx them, but Salvalainen comes home with the fastest lap that is expected from the pole sitter. But Salvalainen is the fastest lap after 1 lap and still ahead. Jardier still close behind. That goes for Borgosman, Foch and Merrill's too. But one thing I have noticed is Valentin Barrier. It's on drive you should definitely not discount from the race because they have a lot of pace and a lot of fight in them. They've managed to fight their way up into that 6th place, and I imagine now they will try and close down on Hugo and Merrill's, and that will bring them into a fight for that podium position. But all these drivers right now, Jesse, in the top 6, even going down to the top 10, don't discount them yet because there's a lot of pace here that could see any of these guys on the podium should the opportunity present itself.
I've just had a thought that didn't occur to me until right now. Samir Foch, of course, also a Yaz Heat driver. Boothby announced that on our broadcast last season as well, that Foch had officially joined the Yaz Heat group, and he's racing officially here for Yaz Heat this season, him and Jardier both. What does Foch do when he catches Jardier? If he catches Jardier, what do they do as teammates? How does that work? That's going to be interesting to find out if we see that sometime this season.
It could be interesting to navigate around. I think to a certain extent they should be allowed to fight. They probably will be allowed to fight as well. I can't see them saying don't fight each other, but I think it'll be very much in the terms of you can fight, just do not do anything that's going to see you both out of this race. Of course, it's the first race of the season as well, and as I've said already, Jesse, at the end of the day, you just want to bring home some good points. So I'm wondering if Foch can catch up to Jardier here, if they can close that gap and do end up fighting, what will be done. But what I do know is if the cars are as tight as they are now, Jardier will be staying ahead because it's just not worth trying to switch cars around or even have cars fighting when there's so much on the table. I think it will probably be Foch's best interest to just sit behind Jardier and not try and let too many positions go.
You know, I do recall both racing for Jan Seed a while ago. Oh, Harley Chamberlain, Dan Edvardsen, a bunch of cars in the pit lane. These are very early stops. The pit window opens almost immediately. It's just designed to keep you from pitting on the first lap or the last lap to gain a unfair advantage. So those are scheduled stops as far as I'm concerned for Chamberlain, Edvardsen, and the rest, trying to come in very early. And I don't hate that strategy either, coming in as early as possible to get yourself out of traffic. Though so many cars came in, Tim Peck, they might still be in a little bit of traffic if they all come out together.
Chamberlain has just picked up a stop and go 30 seconds as well, which I believe would have been for speeding in the pit lane. So that's not going to be good for Chamberlain there. But either way, going back to what you're saying, I like this tactic. I think it is one of the best strategies in ACC at the moment. Come in early as soon as you can at the beginning of the race, put yourself out in some nice clean air, and if you can put in some laps that are faster than a lot of the people that were ahead of you at the beginning, then by the time they've all pitted, you're going to have a much better track advantage. That being said, your tyres will be a lot older and you're probably going to be struggling a little bit, but at the end of the day, that might not matter as much. If they can keep it so the tyres are still in good condition towards the end of the hour, then I am all for this tactic of going in at the earliest opportunity and just getting track position above all else.
Watching Rafał Stacek here in the Golden Holden, I don't want to be the person telling him that's a Honda man.
I mean, yeah, there's one way of putting it.
It's definitely golden.
It works at Golden Holden. I mean, it's a Honda, but yeah, they could have a Golden Honda. Yeah,
listen, if you replace the badge, right, nobody would know? Question mark. But no, 20th place, top 20 place for Stacek there, going very well for them daily in the 197. I noticed them; they had a decent lap. But look at this. This is just outside the top 20. Maybe a little bit of a punt there. Close quarters action. Christian Bach in the 114. And quite interesting about that is there you have it, folks. That is your Nissan GTR, always a fan favorite. Bach has reprised his role in the GTR for GC Racing. And just outside the top 20, we saw some fantastic things from Bach in that car last time they were in it. Curious to see if they were able, or they will be able this season, to repeat that with top 10 finishes. Already looks like, not sure if that's logos or actual damage to the front of that car, as opposed to contact earlier, but it's going to get a position here, and the car right behind him, Scarmato, is going to be able to get through as well and gain a position. That was as clean as you like.
I was saying earlier how important this first race is, and whilst I do still believe that, I think what the first race is one of the most important in the championship, because it's what allows you to sort of start fighting for those higher positions, if you will. But I think it's got to be remembered that actually, Jesse, in the last season, season 7 here in the Friday Championship, George Boothby didn't show up to that race either. They had a prior commitment which they had to attend to, but they came in race 2, they used their drop round for race 1, and that meant they could just really dominate those final rounds, and that's exactly what they did. They dominated the rest of the races, really having a good championship there, and it allowed Boothby to still win anyway. So whilst I say this first race is super important, and it's definitely one you should try and gain as many points as possible in, it has also been done the other way around, where actually the first race can almost be used as a warm-up race for the championship. Find out where you stand, or maybe just get that bad race out of the way, and then you've got the rest of the championship still to look forward to. But either way, I'm still on the team of you should absolutely try and make the most of this first race.
Well, first bit of drama happening early in the season, and we're being corrected. Loki Blue Gaming in chat has said that was a huge crash that caused all those cars to come down the pit lane. That was not strategic. Didn't see that crash, but that might be the case. Let's see what happened here. Back racing for 12th place. Barnabas here continuing to try and hold off, and good close racing, good pass, no contact there, but cheers for the update. Apparently a bunch of those cars, including Edvardsen and Chamberlain, were involved in an accident that caused that. And Chamberlain, insult to injury, speeding in the pit lane, stop and go 30. That is not how you want to start your season. We put such a big emphasis on starting the season out right, and you mentioned the other side of that. George Boothby, who won Season 7, wasn't even here for race number 1. In the end, it did not matter. And while I think that is absolutely true, Tim Peck, I still say getting points and having a little insurance in the bank is better than having to play catch-up all season long and having to be perfect. George Boothby's capable of doing that. I don't know how many other drivers are capable of doing that, and I don't think anybody wants to have to try and race like that. Savalainen, a win today could go a long way into winning the championship. You don't know. It could mean absolutely nothing, but given the option, I would always take the insurance. What about you, though?
Oh no, 100%. I would always take the insurance as well. Get the best result possible. This first race, some great racing here between the number 11 car and I believe that's the number 67 they're fighting off as well, just behind. But you can just see that we're neck and neck almost. Those couple of corners, able to just about 11 stays ahead. Will continue to chase down the 197 of Jordan Daly ahead of them. But going back to what you were saying, Jesse, I'd always take the points, because at the end of the day, if you've not used your drop round, it's still there to be used later on in the season. I would rather win every single race or have a great result in every single race and know that I've still got that one round where if something goes wrong, it's fine, it doesn't matter, it's a drop round, than go the entire championship thinking, okay, I have to absolutely nail this race because I've used my drop round now and this is it. If I mess up here, I'm going to be losing a big haul of points that I need to fight for the championship.
I don't remember where Aaron Trout qualified, but I do see them in 14th, and I could have sworn they qualified further up the grid than that in that 999 BMW. And don't see anything particularly wrong with that car. And the reason I was looking at the 999 is because somewhere right behind them, you have this battle. Daly, Zelinskis, and Stazak has all caught up together for P18. And Justice in the number 11 hounding the back of Daly for that position. Nearly got around him there. Good defensive driving by Daly kept it from happening. Now Justice has to recharge, rethink about it, and take another stab at it. And he's got to do it somewhat quick. The 67 Honda, the Golden Holden, as it's called here, is not waiting around either.
Yeah, I think the number 67 is putting an immense amount of pressure on the number 11 ahead, and that's why they can't pursue the number 197 of Jordan Daly, because I think Daly here has got everything working towards them. Of course, it's not great. They've got a big gap ahead of them, so they're not going to be able to fight for new positions. But in terms of defending, this is the dream here, is to have the car that you're defending against also try and defend for someone from behind, because Daly now can just focus on doing some great laps, keep the pace as high as possible, and hope that Salenskis won't be there trying to push their nose up the inside, because the opportunity's not there yet. If Salenskis makes a mistake here, then Stazak's just going to come straight through as well. And it's not like just a triple 11. And, actually, now Stazak's gone for the move down the inside, a little bit of contact there. He's going to push the number 11 out wide, but I don't know, Jesse. I think they'd rather have done that without the contact, but we're going to see if it really played a huge part here. Here's Stazak coming again. You see them going towards the inside, not yielding. Actually, the number 11 here looks to shut it off a bit, although Stazak definitely misses the apex of that corner. I think there, Rafael Stazak probably could have taken that a little bit tighter, but either way, Stazak is now through, and they'll turn their attention to Daly ahead.
Well, Stazak probably assumed that would have come off a little bit cleaner, probably outbroke themselves a little bit and got into them. I think they were going to have that position regardless, but that was such a very quick move. Look at this, not wanting to get past here as Barnabas here trying to go all the way to the grass basically to try and defend from the Magassi car behind. It just about gets it done. That could have ended in tears, but instead a rethink by Giorgio Magassi there probably saves an incident with Facekiss for the 12th place position. Close racing all up and down the field here. Magassi now has fallen into the clutches of the 999, and again, I'm pretty sure 999 qualified a little bit better than 14th. I could be wrong about that, but certainly has the pace to be going forward here. Finds themselves at the caboose, though, of the line of cars.
Yeah, I agree. I think Aaron Trout did
Oh, here we go
qualify
again.
somewhere higher, but here comes Starzak again. This is on Jordan Daly this time, coming round the outside
Oh,
to
no!
the inside of this next corner, onto the straight though. Who's going to have the better exit? I believe it's probably going to be Starzak from the way Daly went really, really wide there. And you can see Daly already going towards the inside to cover for the next corner here. This is a fast one. Can Starzak get alongside? No, they can't, but still you can see the slipstream start to pull them through. And the momentum coming into this next set of corners. This is where Starzak got the number 11 before, but this time it's around the outside rather than the inside. All they have to do is be alongside here, and they'll have the advantage of the next corners. Daly trying to get the switch back on them as well, still not out of the equation yet, and you can see Daly had such a good exit there that Starzak is not going to be able to defend. Going a little bit wide, will pick up some dirt, which will slow down the momentum of the car, and I think Daly might just still be ahead coming into the next corner, though Starzak has not given up yet. A little bit of contact with Daly. Stays ahead and manages to hold on to that 18th place.
I can tell you exactly what happened there. Starzak made contact with Daly. Daly didn't appreciate that, and it was game on from there. Daly was not about to allow that to happen. Down the Wellington straight, Daly was fanning Starzak to the far right side of the racetrack. Contact, no love lost between those two. A good hard battle, and I'm pretty sure, I can't say that for certain because I'm in the wrong booth for that, pretty sure the stewards are going to let that go, specifically because nothing of value was gained or lost, and it was two drivers that was sort of going at each other, but no damage really done. The only real damage you could argue was they lost time to the car in front of them, but neither one of them will be too worried about Simon in the 966 Lamborghini right now. They have bigger things on their plate. Giorgio Magazzi continuing to try and get around Fazekas in the 95 Honda, and still yet not able to make that pass. Pulls up all the way to the back, but has to back off just a little bit as they exit Club, and that will ruin their run down into Abbey this time.
Magazzi has been pursuing.
Well, I said that, but I don't think it did.
Magazzi has been pursuing Fazekas for a while now in this race, not able to find a way through yet, and has a bit of pressure from Ehrentraut from behind as well in that 999 BMW. So if you're Magazzi in this situation, Jesse, I'm interested to know from your perspective, what are you worried about more? Are you more going for the overtake, trying to clear Fazekas so you can just do your laps at your own speed, or are you more looking towards the rear? Are you worried about Ehrentraut and just focusing on defending against them?
I would be wanting to do the undercut here, especially if I'm in traffic right now. If I'm Rafal right now, I'm coming into the pit lane. I am not dealing with this anymore. I've already seen what Daly's willing to do to put his self in danger and put myself in danger. I don't want to have to deal with that right here. I might come in. The only problem with that, and I think the limiting factor, the reason a lot of people don't do that, this is RCI. Even when there's a less than good chance of rain, there still is a chance of rain. Go back to Thursday Champ 1 day ago. There was not really rain forecast. It was possible, but it was a chance of a very brief light shower and a very low chance at that, and it happened in the middle of that race yesterday, and they will have known that that was a minute possibility, and we know there is a chance of weather in all of these races at some point. Can you risk it by pitting early? I don't think you can. I think you have to get to halfway. I think you have to see what the weather's going to do at the end of the race before you make that decision. Otherwise, you put yourself in a box, and I think that's what most of the teams here are doing.
Yeah, I think that is the underlying strategy in most RCI races. That being said, Ehrentraut has just left the pit lane, so they're probably going for the undercut that you were talking about, that they're going to try and get ahead of the rest of the people. Magazzi as well, Fazekas, they're going to be worried now of that undercut. That being said, though, what you were talking about with the weather, Jesse, is I think Ehrentraut may have this timing for the undercut right. You've got a forecast for 30 minutes into the future. We can see it's supposed to still be sunny in 30 minutes time. Even if it does rain even if it does start suddenly raining in 30 minutes time, it's only 10 minutes where you have to deal with the rain. And again, how much of that can you continue to do on the dry tires? Okay, you're probably going to be sliding around a lot by the end of it, but you're going to have a good bit of distance behind you to cover, and I think you could probably do it. We've seen in the past cars do 10 minutes in the wet weather on the dry tyres. So I think for the drivers that do opt to pit now, it might be a good call that this is the earliest. Sorry, yeah, this is the earliest I'd like to see people pitting.
I'm not going to disagree with you at all, partner. I think that's brilliant because if it is going to rain in the final 10 minutes, there's going to have to be a build-up to that. It's very unlikely. Look at this, too wide. It's going to be contact. The GTR is going to go spinning a little bit. Christian Bach, who had been incredibly patient throughout most of that process, gets sideways into Kopp's door-to-door contact. No heavy damage there between the two of them, though, as they all get going the right way. And they're, mind you, all fighting over 18th place in the very middle of this pack. You could almost see that coming with how hard they were all racing each other. Christian Bach, though, getting the worst into that. It might have damaged the tires. But this has been a big one. Magazi has just been turned a little bit by Kopstov. I think that was the 121 Honda that had contact with him. I could be wrong about that, but Magazi definitely getting spun. Vazquez in the 95 Honda continuing on. What was that? I don't know which way around that was, but Magazi definitely getting a little bit spun there. And for the second time on the same lap, two cars getting partially spun now. Patience wearing thin, Tim Peck.
When did Hugo Morales come into 10th place? I swear Hugo was up in the 5th last time I looked, but now 5th is Solder top with Valentin Barrier just behind in 6th place. Hugo somewhere has had a bit of an incident that's pushed them back into 10th. Now, Hugo Morales has a lot of pace, and we've already seen here in this race and in qualifying how much pace Hugo has. Was, I believe, only a 10th off Salvalainen, the pole sitter of this race, but Hugo Morales falling down to 10th, that is going to put a bit of an offset on their race, and they're now going to be looking to climb back up. And Jesse, if you're Hugo, I mean, the option here is pit now, right? Just pit, get into some cleanish air, and just put out as much pace as possible and hope that you can undercut your way back into the pack.
Well, you got to think like a driver. A lot of times a driver loses positions like that, and they become hell-bent and determined to get those positions back on the racetrack to prove that it was a fluke or it wasn't really their fault, or the fact that they can pass whenever they need to make passes. You have to be wary about that, though. That driver mentality can get you into trouble a lot. Valentin Barrier definitely agrees with you, though. The number 10 Bentley has come into the pit lane. That will be routine service, pitting out of the top 10. And they will be the earliest pitter from the top 10 to come in, and I think that personally is a brilliant move. Christoph Simon in the 966 K-Pax Racing livery car is being taken to task here just a little bit, and might indeed just about get by, but doesn't in the end, by Dixon Chan in the 62. But good close racing between these two. It's about as clean as we've seen it for some time. Can't go around the outside of here. Oh wait, is that Magazi? Excuse me, that's Magazi. Excuse me, I don't know what I was looking at a moment ago, but Giorgio Magazi trying to get some spots back themselves over Simon in the 966. And, well, it didn't quite work out that time either. At least they went sideways that time.
Magazi, yeah, they've got a bit of climbing here to do after that incident that saw them going off the track and really losing a lot of places. But Magazi's got the pace. They've done really well so far today, and already putting the pressure on Simon ahead. I think Magazi has a great chance here to climb back up through the order. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about pit stops, of course, the pit window has been open now for the majority of the race. You can pit basically whenever you want. John O'Racer here may be looking to try and find their way through the BMW ahead of race that goes towards the outside of this corner, looking to maybe gain the advantage on the inside of the next, but just not able to get alongside yet. But going back to what we were saying about pit stops, Jesse, of course, the pit window is open for almost the entire race, not the first or the last lap. But pit strategy-wise, we usually see the same thing, and it's always that pitting on the 30-minute mark that just seems to be the safest option, because you can do the pit on the 30-minute mark, you take the fresh set of tyres, and it's basically then just a race on the track. But occasionally we have these things like we're seeing from Valentin Barrier, from Aaron Trout as well, which is people are pitting that little bit earlier and going for the undercuts. And I think where do you think is the best place to do that? In the first race, obviously it's good to try out these new strategies, but do you think these different strategies have any value behind them? Do you think it's a good idea to try them out, or do you think that maybe it's just stick to what you know, stick to what's safe, what the rest of the lobby is going to be doing. Do these additional strategies actually pay off, in your opinion?
Well, Konstantin Soldatov has come in just inside the top 20, and they will drop back, and they'll be one of the first cars to do that as well in their group. And to answer your question, Tim, I think it is situational. I would honestly, I'd play it safer race number one. If I'm in a decent enough position, top half of the field, I'd probably play it a little bit safe, considering how close the racing is. Barnabas again off of the racetrack in the 95 Honda. A big swoop there by Jan Climbs, not willing to give position to Facekas at all there. And that was very close stuff as they got into Brooklands in left field that time through. Absolutely nobody giving anybody any room. Barnabas here riding on board the 95, trying to switch back to get a little extra momentum. And that's what started the run. But going back to your question, Tim, oh my goodness, yeah, just ran out of room there. If he would have went to the other side, that would have been an easy pass. A little bit of a mistake there by Barnabas, in my opinion. I think he would have had the inside and surely been around Jan Climbs there, who was held up by the car in front. But no, Tim, it's situational when you pit. I think you're absolutely right. The 30-minute mark is the safest place to pit because there's no unknowns with that. You know what you're going to get. I think if you're stuck in traffic early into a race, pitting early, as long as the weather doesn't change, is a huge boost to yourself. I think pitting very late is beneficial. If you're in space or maybe inside that top 10, you can pit late and get away with it because when everybody else pits at the halfway point, you may have some space yourself. All of those things are valid strategies, just depending on where you are in the field. Hugo Merrill's, by the way, in the pit lane.
Yeah, and Hugo Morales is someone who I think definitely should have pitted when they did. I think a bit earlier, before that 30-minute mark, is a good idea. Of course, you now know what the weather's going to look like for the majority of the rest of the race. You're now in clean air, though, and you can just try and push. And Hugo Morales was originally behind, I can't remember who it was now, but they were stuck behind another driver. It may have been Kopsov, it may not have been, though. But either way, Hugo Morales now has an opportunity to just undercut that driver, close the gap on everyone ahead as well. And I think that's the best strategy call here from Hugo, just to pit now. Magazi almost back into that top 10, but hasn't pitted yet, of course, and neither have a lot of the drivers ahead of them. Will still be sitting probably around that 14th, 15th place once the pit stops are done. But Magazi already continuing to close in on Simon now, and I think Magazi does a great drive today, and I'd like to see them maybe go for the same sort of strategy. Maybe try and pit a little bit earlier, see if it works out, and just see if you can do something with a bit of clean air. But going to opt in staying behind Simon for now, and I'm wondering if maybe they're just going to try and push their strategy to the limit, like you were saying, the other way around, maybe pushing it a little bit longer, going towards that 25-minute mark before they pit, and that will help Magazi to maybe overcut some positions too. But either way, I think Magazi has a brilliant opportunity here to make something happen, but may have to go a little bit outside of the safe strategy just to see these positions get gained again.
We saw Jardier pit out of P2. The 39 Yachts Heat Ferrari comes down to the attention of his team. We saw Jan Climbs do the exact same thing, and that will, to the relief of Barnabas, allow them through. Several other cars in, Statzik in as well. You see Justice in the 11 as a drive-through penalty, and that is because they have been given one. First of all, 5-second penalty to car 11 for avoidable contact on lap 1, turn 11 versus the 67 car. One turn later, drive-through penalty issue for car 11 for an unsafe rejoin leading to the takeout of the 333. And on lap 1, turn 4, racing incident between the 121 and the 95. Lap 1, no further action between the 121 and the 180. And again on lap 1, no further action, racing incident this time for minor contact between the 62 and the 256. So we weren't expecting a lot of penalties to come out of the early part of this race. It's been mostly clean, or at least we'll say mostly civil. I won't say clean. I'll stop short of saying that. But just the one penalty for Justice there, rather unfortunate, though. The stewards are still looking at incidents, and in fact, here they come. Phil Roberts handing us the slips of paper here. This is a lap 2, turn 1 incident that we only heard about from our lovely chat. A drive-through penalty issued for the 889 for leading into a severe avoidable accident. That was versus car 8. 5-second penalty for car 180 for failure to hold brakes, leading to avoidable contact. A stop and go 10 for car 256 for failure to hold brakes, leading to a multi-car takeout. That took out cars 30, 725, and the 8 car. Racing incident for minor contact between the 699 and the 9. 5-second penalty for car 30 for missing the apex and pushing the 11 off of the racetrack. Racing incident between the 92 and the 114. Racing incident between the 67 and the 11. And a racing incident between the 92 and the 166. A lot going on there, but only a few penalties. The big one, though, that stop and go for 256, I think that was the big accident that we were told about.
Potentially, yeah. Well, sorry, I was sort of zoning out, looking at Silverstone here, still in the lead of this race, managing to stay ahead. And where is Jardier gone? They are all the way down in that 15th place position, which, I mean, after penalties, it's not penalties. After pit stops, it's not usually that much of a surprise. But seeing as there's now what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars between them, maybe even more actually than that. But there's a lot of cars now between them and never mind, it's sorted itself out of the leaderboard. Just ignore everything I just said.
for those of you at home, the way ACC works is that it does confuse us in the booth because it updates around the sector time intervals, and a lot of times we have those memorized and we think that a driver has passed the sector time interval and the board is updated, but in reality it hasn't done because the car directly in front of them has come into the pit lane, and it absolutely throws us a curveball. So do forgive us. Timing and scoring is a bit wonky at times, simply because of the timing method used. Savalainen, though, is in front of Jardier, 1.7 seconds the gap. Jardier, actually, it's less than that now. It's 1.3. Savalainen trying to get the tires back up to temperature. Jardier's will already be at the correct temperature. The battle between the top two may be reestablished here. Daniel Durrett in the number 300 Beast Racing car, and they're going to go around. It's a big one.
Oh, I didn't see what quite happened there, but we're going to get a race replay and find out exactly what happened with the Ghostman here. It was the car ahead, I believe. I think it's a green car we are watching right now on your screen. There's going to be contact between them. Maybe it's with the Ghostman. Yeah, but Ghostman's going to go right into the rear. And that's what happened to the green car. We saw them go really, really wide on that corner. That's not going to be good news for the Ghostman there, who was starting to close back in on Jardier in that second place position. You can see just 5 temps splitting up the 240 and the number 39 right now. But I mean, that doesn't look good for the Ghostman, does it? I mean, there's not much that can happen there, but that looks like they've caused a racing incident by outbreaking themselves.
Yeah, I think Borgosman was caught off guard there by the 300, was braking in a strange way, or a cadence that they weren't familiar with, and it caught them off guard, napping, if you will. Oh my goodness, that didn't look good by Savalainen right there, did it? The car snapping just a little bit, coming through Stowe Corner. And we've seen that before out of the Mercedes late to a race on its tires. There have been several updates that have changed some of the dynamics of the cars, but that looked like he was digging off the corner, and the car was not willing, or did not have the grip to leave the corner like he wanted to do. Jardier tried to clear one of the cars in between them. That's not lap traffic, that's Lindrup in the 9, still yet to pit. They get through them, and now it's all back together. That is Borgosman right there, by the way, coming through as well. Andre Dixon Chin comes into the pit lane from the lead of the race. Giorgio Magazzi will follow him. That should cycle Savalainen, Jardier, and Borgosman back out into the front of the field, but hard to believe there wouldn't be a penalty coming in for the 240 sometime.
Well, that's going to promote Foch up onto that podium position, Jesse, which will then help to beg the question of what happens if the two Yas Heat drivers come together on the track, because with the Ghostman out the way, it'll be up to Foch to try and fight Jardier, if you will. But that being said, that might not be the case. Depends on what penalty the Ghostman gets here. If it's a 5-second penalty or a time penalty, that is not one that they have to serve during the race. Maybe it's best just to continue to stay out on track for them, try and do some good laps on the tyres that they have, and the fuel that they have, and just put as much distance as as they can behind to Soldatov, who is currently sitting in that 5 seconds behind. So let's say Bogosian here gets a 5-second penalty. Right now, they are still holding on to that podium. No, they're not. No, they're not. Never mind. Foch is still there. Right now, they're still holding on to 4th position, though. So they can still fight for that podium. And if they can put the 5 seconds onto Foch, then they'll still have that podium.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Bogosian, of course, if it is a time penalty, you can elect to take that at the end of the race. And if you've done your pit stop, you absolutely will. If you haven't done your pit stop, you are required to take it during your pit stop as an additional time penalty. But all the drivers up at the front here, the top 7, have already done that. So if any penalties come in for them, then that'll just be added on to the race time. You got to manage those gaps. Christoph Simon, the 966, checking back in with them, continuing their fight with Magazi. Magazi was able to get in front of the 966 on that pit cycle, but Simon hasn't lost the back of Magazi. Magazi has not lost the Lamborghini here.
Yeah, well, we know they're very similar pace of each other anyway, and what we also know is that Simon pitted earlier as well, which is going to help them to just keep up with Magazi. Their tyres are going to be much more warmed up and back into the action, if you will. Already, Magazi, they're clearing some lapped traffic coming through the village section here. But yeah, I think Jesse, Simon's got a little bit of an advantage till towards the end of this lap, maybe towards the middle of this lap. But Magazi, by the time those tyres heat up, will be able to go out full pace again. And then we'll see what the pace difference is like between them, because this might just be that Simon, of course, had a good run out of the pits. They had their tyres all warmed up and the car was ready and back in action, whereas Magazi is still on their out lap, if you will. It's the lap that you would do just to warm your tyres up in a quality session, but of course in a race you have to do it on the track. So I expect this fight to continue, though. I think Simon and Magazi looked very similar pace as well. Of course, that's reinforced by the fact that when Magazi was the one behind Simon, they couldn't find a way through as well. So I definitely don't think that Lamborghini is out for the count just yet.
No, certainly not. This race for a lot of the different drivers have turned into a bit of a grudge match between a couple. Oh, one car way off of the racetrack there. And in fact, still off of the racetrack into Beckett's. What has gone wrong through Maggots and Beckett's? It's Andrea in the 888, I'm pretty sure. Was there contact that led to this? Or was it too much curb? Nothing. Oh, that has all the hallmarks of a hardware failure to me.
Oh, I'm not sure, because they're still turning. I don't know. It depends. That might be a hardware failure, but either way, something has gone very, very wrong with that car. They just believe that they have picked it up now, though. Yeah, you can see the AAA is still in this race. They haven't pitched yet. I'm wondering if maybe that's old tyres not getting the grip correct and they've just messed up that corner and gone off track. But either way, that's going to be a huge setback for the AAA car, and I think now is definitely the time to pit for that car. Obviously, everyone around you is going a lot faster because they're on the fresh tires. You can see now Magazi just wants to fight their way through. They do not want to be held up in this, and Simon right behind is probably very happy with how this turned out, because it's allowed them to close the gap to Magazi there, as Magazi almost touched the rear of the car ahead. But Magazi, you can see, just trying to find a way through the AAA. The AAA is not yielding, though, which you don't have to. I mean, they're not a blue flag in this situation. They can absolutely just stay ahead on the track, and they're not going to let up the position, which is going to be really frustrating for Magazi. You can see here, again, going towards the inside. But, Jesse, I'd definitely say this is tyre failure more than anything else. You can see the tyre where it's just almost dead. But you can see, even going through these corners, the tyre's just really not holding up, really losing the grip as well. It's allowing so many more cars through, and they're going to come into the pits, and I imagine they'll be back out again on a fresh set of tyres. But to me, that looks like the tyres have just lost all grip in them.
But they turned hard right, though, in what was a left-hand turn for coming up to Beckett's. That was very odd to me to see a car turn right there when at very best you're going straight. Now, the only other thing I could think of is maybe no traction control, warm tires, maybe lit them up coming out of Maggots, perhaps. I have no idea. Very strange stuff indeed. And if anything does go down to the racetrack, Tim Peck, do interrupt me, because, folks, I'm winding up for a long one. These incidents are all lap 7 and above. 5-second penalty for car 889 for moving left on the 333 and forcing them off the racetrack. Racing incident between the 329 and the 5. 5-second penalty for car 67 for pushing the 11 off the track and gaining a position. No further action between the 67 and the 197. No further action between the 166 and the 699. Racing incident between the 67 and the 197. No further action between the 699, the 9, and the 166. Racing incident for a minor contact with car 300. Racing incident for 166 and the 9. Racing incident between the 67 and the 11. Racing incident between the 9 and the 166. Can you guess what the next one is, Tim?
Instant for the 240.
No, don't be silly. No further action between the 114 and the 67. I was trying to trick you into saying racing incident. Racing incident between the 166 and the 699. 5-second penalty for car 121 for hitting car 34, pushing them off the track. Racing incident between the 966 and the 34. Racing incident between the 329 and the 95. Racing incident between the 166 and the 699. Drive-through penalty for car 240 for taking out car 300. I think we saw that coming. And finally, racing incident between the 300 and the 166. The drive-through for the 240 for crashing into the 300. Tim, pretty slam dunk, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we all saw that coming for the 240 there with the drive-through. But interestingly enough, though, that means that they will have to serve that penalty if they want to avoid a huge. I believe it's 130 seconds. It's a lap, isn't it? If you don't serve the drive-through within the next 3 laps, so the Ghostman will have to serve that drive-through penalty there, which means that Foch is going to promote it into that 3rd place position. Then they'll be able to fight Jazier if they can close that gap. That is, because right now that 420 is about 2.4 seconds behind the Ghostman, who's in the 240 car. So Foch has a bit of catching up to do if they want to fight for 2nd place. Just see enough. I'm looking at the fastest lap. That's gone down to the number 5 car. The fastest lap here, correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, is it worth 3 points or is it worth 2 points? Which way round is it? The fastest lap I know is worth points.
I'm not, I think it might be 3 points, I'm pretty sure. By the way, folks at home, there's one name that has a drive-through that wasn't on that list. You may be wondering, as Borgosman does come down the pit lane to serve that drive-through. Doesn't have to stop, just has to pass through on the limiter. Very important not to be speeding in pit lane. That will get a stop and go 30 immediately. You have to come down again. But this particular driver, Yano Gran, in the 404, the Barnwell Motorsport liveried Lamborghini, this car has a drive-through penalty. That is, unless I'm very much mistaken, 4 track limits. Mentioned that at the top of the show today. There are several places here where you can shortcut the corner and even long cut the corner and pick up track limits. Grand has run afoul of that and been the first victim of that today. With 17 minutes left, though, not sure they will be the last. By the way, to answer your question, fastest lap is 2 points. Pole position is 3 points. You do both of them, you get an additional 5 points.
And Salvalainen will be claiming all of those points if the race was to end here. They started on pole position, of course, and they've just taken the fastest lap back. Salvalainen has absolutely aced this race so far, 2.1 seconds ahead of Jardier here, and has not done anything but lead a lap here today at Silverstone. So Salvalainen having an absolutely amazing race. We're very happy with how this first race at Silverstone is turning out.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of rivalries between 2 or 3 cars where they've went at it, but just a litany of racing incidents and no further actions, a couple of major incidents as you would expect in a race of this caliber with drivers of this caliber, but beyond that, not a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal for the drivers involved if they were involved, obviously, but it's been that kind of race where it has been a fairly routine race. Number one, we don't always get that. It is so very nice to see it. Yen Climbs, by the way, has parked the 329 Porsche. They must have been serving a penalty and got another penalty, a stop and go 30. Mentioned that earlier, speeding in the pit lane while serving a penalty obviously gives you that. And the Verva Racing Porsche will take no further part in this evening's race. And I don't know where we're assigning points to. Usually it's the top 15, but due to the high amount of race cars, it might be a bit longer than that. But I would imagine anywhere outside the top 30 might not be getting points. And of course, on top of that, you have to finish 80% of the race as well. So I'll kick it off. The 404 Lamborghini is in to serve their track limits drive-through penalty, and that will pretty much end that saga. And just a couple of more things that have come through here. A couple of more racing incidents that are through. Warning for car 166 for causing avoidable contact with car 300. A 15-second penalty for car 300 for taking out the 166 position was returned. Otherwise, that would have likely been a drive-through penalty. Racing incident between the 5 and the 43, and a racing incident between the 888 and the 62. And I was told by Mr. Phil Roberts, who calls the Thursday races with us here on RCI now, that the stewards are all caught up, or at least they were just a moment ago.
So we're currently looking at Fazecus out on the track. We're now looking at Magazi. But either way, these two at one point were fighting each other. Magazi, of course, had an incident earlier which saw them fall back through the field, and now they're trying to fight Dixon Chen in the McLaren just ahead of them. They've managed to put some distance on them to Simon, who's fallen behind Grand as well. So Magazi doing a huge job here at just climbing back up the order into this 14th place position, which isn't where they were originally looking. They were originally looking towards that 10th place, but Magazi will be happy with how the drive has gone so far. Valentin Barrier, someone else who will be very happy with how their drive has gone so far, is back up into that top 5 and is now looking towards that 4th place position as well. Of course, Brian Mawson has now broken his oath and has been watching Valentin Barrier, but so far it's not been too much of a problem. Although I do believe that the first time we switched to them, Jesse, they did end up having a slight incident, which is where they originally found themselves out of the top 10 anyway. But Valentin Barrier, either way, one of those drivers that, as I was saying at the beginning, you cannot discount them from the race. They've got a lot of pace, and they're also very, very good at fighting the cars ahead. You can see now that Barrier just trying to close the gap to Soldatov here, and it's fallen behind a little bit on the straight, but coming towards the corner, I imagine that Bentley will be again trying to find their way back up the inside, because Barrier is one of those drivers that will absolutely take the fight whenever the opportunity approaches.
Well, we talked a little bit about the Yaz Heat driver. Let's talk about the Rocket SimSport driver, Valentin Barrier, doing an excellent job here. We haven't talked about Konstantin Soldatov at all. They've been inside the top 10 this entire race, and spent the better part of the race inside the top 5. Just a quiet, workman-like day for Konstantin. And that's exactly what you want out of a race one. You don't have to go out there and win this race. Winning the race is obviously what you want to do, and obviously what you want to do is get max points, which is what Savalainen is attempting to do today. But beyond that, just a solid top 5 day. That is a successful race number 1 in a long championship. 7 more races after this one today. It's a long road. It's going to be a long fall for this Friday championship. You need to get everything you can, but a top 5, that's basically a win in race number 1. That must mean, if you finish in the top 5 with this many drivers, this many quality drivers, that the race went as planned. You could build upon stuff like that, maybe get wins later on in the season.
Maybe, but I'd even argue that goes down quite a way as well. I mean, we're looking at top 30 drivers get points here, Jesse, which means that those drivers that are in the top 10 even will still have a decent enough start just to push them up a little bit in the championship. And I'm looking at Hugo Morales right now, but Ghostman, Erin Trout, 3 drivers that really stood out at the beginning of this race, and unfortunately had racing instances, saw them put down through the order, now towards the bottom of that top 10, but you can't discount them from the championship yet. I mean, it's the first race, and they're securing a decent amount of points straight away, and that's really going to help them later on in the championship when they do have maybe those rounds where they struggle a little bit, maybe something goes very, very wrong and they find themselves right at the back of the pack. These are the points that you're trying to gain now just to help you cover for that later on in the season. So I say this has been a good start for everyone in the top 10 right now. This is going to be a very, very good start to the championship, because as you said, Jesse, it's all about securing that first load of points that helps you continue to fight for the lead.
By the way, and if we are wrong about this is all on Tom Bryant. We've just been informed, talking about Konstantin Soldatov, it is his birthday today. I have no idea how old Konstantin is, but that is rather by the by. Happy birthday, Mr. Konstantin Soldatov. It's looking like a good race today thus far. Do you think Barrier will cut him a little bit of slack knowing that it's his birthday? Probably not.
No, it's Valentin Barrier. They're not going to cut any slack.
Come on, man, it's my
whatsoever.
birthday. Cut me some slack. Let me have fourth.
Oh, if anything, that's going to make Barrier fight even harder. Try and get ahead of Solid at the top here. They're going to give them the birthday. I was going to say birthday bash, but that's not a good thing in racing. I more just meant
Yeah,
like
you don't
a good
want to
old
bash.
fight.
You don't want to have a birthday bash out on the racetrack.
Just like a good old fight, though. Something to really smile about on your birthday. That's what Barrier is going to give as a gift to Solid here. They're going to absolutely fight them to the limit and put a big smile on both their faces, hopefully. But Valentin Barrier is still trying to find a way through Solidov, and now looking down towards P11. You've got FaZe Cast trying to find their way into the top 10. Aaron Trout in the 999 BMW has been in a lot of different places in this race. We've seen them in that top 5. We've seen them in the 15th place as well. So Aaron Trout now sitting in that 10th place. Will be hoping to hold off FaZe Cast. They just want to finish in that top 10 right now. And as you said, to finish in that top 10 is a real handout in today's race.
Yeah, it certainly is, and especially the day that Barnabas has had in that 95. We'll think that they're good value for it. Certainly been working their way up through this field and been doing a great job of it. But 999 BMW, who we saw way down 14th place, they have rebounded to a top 10 position, and they're not going to give up that position lightly either. I don't know who's going to win this. It's been close between the 95 and a lot of other drivers, and oh, that pretty much tells you exactly what you're gonna get there. A huge lunge by the 999, closing off FaZe Cast in the 95, and that will do nothing but spur Barnabas on here further, but it also gives you an idea of what the BMW is gonna do now.
And I mean, the BMW is a great car to have around this track. With all the straights, you can really use the BMW's power to its full potential here. But either way, I think Aaron Trout is going to be heavily defending against FaZe Cast here, but as you said, FaZe Cast as well going to be looking to try and find that position because it's the first race. What's left to do is Hugo Morales here goes towards the inside. Is this the attack on the McLaren? It is. This is attack on the McLaren ahead, and Hugo Morales with a very quick and simple move there goes down the inside of the number 43 McLaren, and that's another position gain for Hugo. They've gone from, what was it they were in before, pits 12th? And they're now back up in 7th. A great recovery
They're definitely
drive.
10th before the pit stop, and they obviously fell below that during the cycle of stops. They had to get by some cars when they were outside the top 10 before everybody else pitted as well. And now they're continuing their march back to the front, a little bit more comfortable for Merrill's now up into 7th place. Hershey now uncomfortable as you might imagine. Borgosman in the 240 making their way back through the field a little bit after a earlier penalty, and they're just about going to take 8th place away from Hershey in the 43. So those cars cycle back through, and that pretty much goes back to the way it was. A nice recovery for a couple of drivers here that had various different issues, some with penalties, some with just don't know what happened to Hugo still. Something must have happened, though, to see them fall that far back. Whatever it was, didn't show up as an incident. Could have been self-inflicted. Who knows? But nothing wrong with that car going the right direction here. Final 7 minutes of race number 1. And while there are still some positions up for grabs here, including the final spot inside the top 10 and 4th place, I got to ask Tim, what was your take on today's race? I thought it was a very nice first race. It set the tone for the championship. If this entire championship is like this, good hard racing throughout with very little major drama, I think it's going to be a nail-biter of a championship.
I do think so too. I think towards the front, I'd have liked to have seen a bit more racing from those guys, because what we've seen at the front of the pack is mostly just 4 cars following each other through. And don't get me wrong, like the pace alone is something to be really proud about for Salvaline, Jardier, Frosch, and Bogosman as well back when they were up in that 3rd place position. But either way, I think what I want to see is more people taking the fight to Salvaline here. I think Jardier, towards the beginning of the race, was hovering very close, within just a second off. They've now fallen. They're now 3 seconds away from Salvaline. But either way, I want to see more fighting towards the front. Sorry, there are so many drivers here. Salvaline and Honzik, Foch, shoulder to Barrier, Hugo Morales, Ghostman. All of them easily could have taken a win today, and I'd like to see them come into the next few races all fighting a lot more towards the front, because we've had some great fights across the track, but to me they've all been more in the mid-pack, and I think for the rest of the season I cannot wait see what these guys do at the front, because I know that these drivers are going to be battling out as the season progresses.
I hate to play devil's advocate. That's a bold-faced lie. I love playing devil's advocate, and I will do. I started the show today by giving you all the tidbit of this is one of Savalainen's better racetracks. He has a lot of tracks he's really good at. Next week, though, we're going to Imola. Would you like a Savalainen stat from Imola? He's entered, at best, 8 races that I'm aware of in the RCI network of races. He's only ever won one of them, and he's only ever finished a couple of those races. Imola is an arch nemesis of his. Could we see a reversal of fortune next week? And oh, by the way, that man chasing him down today, Jardier has, he's won at least 3 that I recall in recent memory at Imola. So consider that, put that in the back of your mind for next week. We could have a reversal of the first 2 in 1 week's time. Savalainen has led almost every time he's ever been to Imola. He's only ever won once.
Salvador's going to be hoping that they...
he would rather have preferred I not remembered that is what he would have done.
Oh yeah, 100%. Salvador's going to watch back this stream, Jesse, and just really hate you for that comment. But either way, Salvador's going to be hoping to turn their tides at Imola really next week. They're going to want to continue this push in the first place position, hopefully not get caught up in too much trouble. But Jardier as well. I mean, Jardier is known for being very, very strong at Imola. Fazekas here looking towards the inside of Ehrentraut, now on the outside, but still going to slingshot their way around the corner with enough momentum. They might be able to do this, but a bit of contact is going to close that door for Fazekas, and Ehrentraut will stay ahead coming into the straight here. Can Fazekas reclose this gap as we reapproach the first corner? They're looking towards the inside, but going to think better of it because they're just too far behind as it stands, and now they're going to have to continue to catch up. The BMW approaches Magnus and Beckett, and that's Ehrentraut's opportunity to just get some good distance on the Honda behind. But going back to what you're saying here, Jesse, is Jardier very well known to be very fast around Imola, and I think Imola, again, is one of those tracks where things will be shaken up quite a lot. I know the last time I was watching Imola, I believe it was Valentin Barrier.
Oh, no, Barrier!
Someone there spinning out. It's Valentin Barrier, as I mentioned them. No, it's not. That was
Soldatov. That was sideways, but I was reacting to Barrier trying to get out of the way. Maybe led to that contact that doesn't give up a position for them. But was that the 5 Aston Martin that just went through? What happened here? Riding on board Valentin Barrier, Konstantin Soldatov in front. And they went off the track there, did Soldatov a little bit, getting the braking zone wrong, and that's exactly what I saw. Barrier into the back of Soldatov, and there goes the 5 through, and that will give up the 4th place position. That will knock Barrier outside the top 5 and put Konstantin Soldatov in 5th place for the final couple of laps. They're going to have to sort this out and quickly.
Barrier not going to be happy with how that turned out, but I was going to say Valentin Barrier, one of the strong drivers at Imola as well. I've seen some great performances from them in the past, so at least next week we'll be looking up for Barrier here, but you can see already just trying to get that place back on Soldatov, just right into the rear of Soldatov in that corner there, and already wants to try and fight their way into that 5th place, because Barrier here has been in all sorts of positions and they've really fought to be in this top 6 here. Would love to make it a top 5 finish, but I don't know, Jesse, I don't think that crash is going to help them.
Oh, look at this. Barrier still trying to get that position away. Didn't take it away on the accident, but still trying to make it work. Side by side, they go through Maggots and Beckett's, and Barrier thinks about it, gets back in line, but now he's going to try and sneak up on him on the inside of Beckett's there. Can't quite get that done, and they go back single file. Meanwhile, Degger in the 5 Aston Martin driving away from them now. That car was quicker than both of these two. You might make an argument that they were quicker because these two have been fighting, but it doesn't look like it's going to matter. The 5 out in front and driving away here is Degger in front. Soldatov and Barrier fighting back in the pack. This is the fight for 10th place continuing. Barnabas has been able to wrestle that position away from the 999 and has put a little bit of distance on them now.
But they're going to want to put a lot more distance on the 999 though, because they've got a 5-second penalty. So I'm wondering if Ehrentraut here maybe eased off a little bit once they saw the 5-second penalty. Just thought, okay, I can let them through. I just need to stay within 5 seconds, and that place is still mine there. The same goes for the 121 that's behind Ehrentraut right now. They've got 5-second penalty too. So Ehrentraut still sitting in that provisional 10th place. Will be very happy with how that is turning out for them. And they've had a good race here, Jesse.
Yeah, they absolutely have. It's been a pretty brilliant race on all accounts for a bunch of different drivers in today's event. Wow, it's going to take a lot to digest just exactly what has taken place today, as everybody will have one more lap. This will be the last lap of the race. Everybody is getting ready to start. And in the interim, just a big thank you to everybody watching at home. We appreciate you joining us on your Friday evening. We invite you to like and subscribe. We're less than 20 subs away from 4,200 subscribers here on the RCI TV channel. We would love for you to join us for races in the future. This entire series, of course, we've got Night Owl tomorrow night as well. The Monday Championship continues on Monday. Thursday Champ Round number 2 next week. And of course, Tim Peck and myself will be back with you here for continuing coverage of the Friday GT Sprint Challenge Series in 1 week's time. All of our series in full swing this time of year. We invite you to join us, have a little fun with us on any evening of the week pretty much these days. And wow, just coming up to it, the final few turns. Can Berrier make this happen? Berrier given that 5-second penalty for the contact earlier now. Pass here will make no difference.
At this point, it's just Barrier showing what they can do here. They want this for sportsmen's bragging rights, really. They just want to get through Solotov and say, look, I can do it. I can overtake you. And next time, I will be bringing home the points for it too. But like you said, the 5-second penalty, it's going to keep them in that 6th place. Either way here, they just need to make sure they don't crash and lose some time to Hugo behind. Hugo Morel's got a 5-second penalty too, and I believe they're clear enough of Horchy. Actually, I don't think they are clear enough of Horchy, no. But Hugo Morels will be looking to just get a good race finish today. Finishing up in the top 10 is going to be very good for them after whatever incident that drove them earlier. But here comes Juna Salvalainen, about to cross the line for the first race of this season. Will bring home their win here at Silverstone today. Juna Salvalainen wins at Silverstone.
Max points day for Savalainen, exactly what he needed to do. Starting out on the right foot, Jardier not putting a foot wrong all day. Challenged for the lead, kept him earnest, but will take home second, a strong second place. Samir Foch, quiet, spent the day in the top 5, gets rewarded for a clean race on the podium position. Yas Heat, it's a 2-3 today. Negger in the 5 will get gifted 4th place here after the contact between Soldatov and Berrier. Soldatov will hang on for a top 5. Berrier, Merrill's both with 5-second penalties will cycle out where they are. Will Horchy get by Merrill's in the final standings? We'll find out. Borgosman in 9th and Faiskas inside the top 10 with another brilliant battle for the final spot inside the top 10. Meanwhile, throughout the entire field, still fighting the good fight. Daly and Ornst here fighting over what is effectively 19th position. Igor Ornst goes down to the inside of the penultimate corner, and he's going to get clear here. Daly's going to set up for a long undercut, and I don't think he's going to get it. Maybe a little bit of contact, maybe miss the marker just a little bit, and in the final corner, Ornst is going to take home what is effectively 18th place here.
A great final corner overtake from Ornst is really going to show what they can do going into the next round. But of course, again, it's going to be the same old story of Daly will keep that 18th position from them. There's the AAA doing donuts.
Andre Timofeyev is celebrating something. I don't know what it is.
They're celebrating finishing the race, Jesse.
They're very happy about that. I would be very happy about that if I was every driver in today's race. It was an absolutely brilliant race. They paired off Noah's Ark style and did battle for an entire hour. Folks, we invite you to join us next weekend, or excuse me, next Friday. Friday night's the weekend. I was right the first time. We invite you to join us next Friday night, race number 2, live from Imola. What will we see there? I suspect a reversal of fortune from today. Savalainen there, very clearly max points day. Jardier Foch, a 2-3. For Yas Heat, as we mentioned, the results scrolling past your screen. All of the drivers in today's race, pro, of course, the top of the top. Top 30 in points, by the way, or top 30 in the race get points, provided they finished 80% or more of the race. Yang Climbs, who was parked in the pit lane 16 laps down, it's going to be close if they finished 80% or not. We'll see next week for the championship points when we get them before the race. Final thoughts, Tim Peck, on what you saw today.
I personally think that was a great race one. I think it was a great start to the championship. There's going to be a lot of drivers very happy with their results as well. Salvoline are going to be absolutely ecstatic with that win today. And it's a great start to their championship as well. It secures them a good bunch of points. I believe they got fastest lap as well. So that's all the points for fastest lap and the pole position. Salvoline's had an absolutely brilliant start to this championship. And hopefully for them, they're going to continue that throughout and be contending for the win in this championship. But that being said, I think a lot of drivers today have shown that you can't discount them yet. So many drivers had such good results, and even those ones that had incidents at the beginning, a lot of them climbed back up through the order too. So I think it's going to be a very, very tight championship. And going into next week at Imola, I can only see this battle continuing.
Well, folks, you can join us next week here on RCI TV, racerci.com. Midweek signups for all of our championships are allowed, meaning that you sign up on our website and join the Discord and do your pre-quali. You can get in next week's race. We'd love to see you on the track, and don't matter what your skill level is, we have a split for you. racerci.com. Sign up, get going this week. We got an onslaught of races. We mentioned those earlier. All week long, we'll be with you, and of course, night out tomorrow night as well. A big thank you to our partners that make this race and every race possible. AK Informatica for providing our server solutions. Driver61 and driver61.com. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by going to driver61.com and using our discount code. The link is in the description of the video. Driver coaching can make you a faster sim racing driver. It's worked for the admin team here at RCI. They've bumped up all of them at least one class here in weekly action. And of course, fanatec.com. Use our affiliate link when making purchases of quality sim racing hardware at fanatec.com. Doesn't cost you a single thing, and it tells them that we sent you. It helps us with things like server cost when you use them. And of course, on the way out, why not subscribe to the RCI TV YouTube channel? We're so close to 4,200 subs. On all of that, just a brilliant race up front today. Some twists and some turns, some body checks out there as well, but mostly just good racing. Juna Savalainen, your winner and your points leader. Max points day today. Can they keep it up? We'll find out when we're live next week from Imola. And until then, I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Tim Peck and Ryan Mawson. On behalf of the admin crew, the broadcast team, and the stewards, we thank you for watching. And until next time, have a good night.